So we are in a profound state of gratitude. Yes? Yes, we are. I'm so blessed to be here and to be part of this community. I'm reminded of it on a daily basis. Because I have said many times, I'm fortunate that I get to spend most of my time and most of my interactions with conscious, or at least striving to be conscious people. I'm not going to say who's who. We're not going to set up sections, But, at least we're all working on it. We're all in the process. We're all growing and becoming. And I realize that's not everybody's experience. That sometimes people are dealing in very negative situations, maybe called your family, or your work, or any number of things. So I just am blessed that I spend most of my time either with conscious people or with my dog, who's highly conscious. So I'm very grateful. But I realize that I expect my life to be a certain way, and therefore it is, which is what I want to speak of today. We've been looking at the laws of gratitude, and we looked at this idea that there's a law of grace, and that the law of grace is simply that there is a self-givingness to spirit. That some of us may have come from a tradition that somehow we had to do something or be something or not be something or any number of things so that the divine would bestow grace upon us. But my sense and my feeling and my belief is that grace is a state of being. It is a quality of the divine. That, as Ernest Holmes says, spirit is just pouring itself into existence freely, fully, all of the time. And yet, as Ernest Holmes says, awaiting our recognition of it. Because if we don't recognize it, it doesn't exist. Have you noticed this? Things don't exist until we recognize them as existing. And so it is our awakening to that state of being that allows us to have this greater and more profound experience. And we looked at the law of presence, which is to simply be able to move beyond our limited way of seeing and perceiving reality to step into that greater ongoing possibility that is always happening. You see, in our teaching, we're always saying that the divine is wholeness. The divine is love, that it is joy, it is peace, it is harmony, it is abundance, it is all of that. And yet, sometimes we move into a state of non-recognition, into a state of duality where we perceive everything as good or bad, as right or wrong, as this or that. And so when we can move into the state of presence through our spiritual practice, we realize that there's a harmonizing intelligence at work all of the time, and that we can be a part of that. Today I wanted to look at an idea that is troubling. It's troubling. So, just want to set you up. Let your heart not be troubled, neither let it be afraid. But, no. And here's the thing. You may have heard me mention this before. For those of you that do remain awake during the entire service, you've definitely heard this before. And that is that we are co-creative beings. You see, there is a creative intelligence, the source that creates all. We didn't create life. We didn't create our life. We didn't create this body, we didn't create this, but we are co-creative with an intelligence that is creating all. And so as we begin to discover the laws of mind, of spiritual being, we discover some powerful things, and that is this idea that we are co-creative, that this intelligence is moving itself into existence and into expression, and it is working according to our belief and our expectation. So here's what the troubling part is. That your life and my life looks exactly the way we expect it to. Now, for some of you are going, yippee. For others, going, jerk. I can see those little bubbles over your head. Don't think you are, right? What do you mean, my life, it looks exactly the way I expect it to be? Don't you know about this and this and this and this? But hey, bear with me for a moment. You see, when we are in this state of being, we realize that there is this power of expectation. And so realize, of course, so again, guilt-free, because most of our belief system happens at a subconscious level. It is information that was stored or absorbed from those around us that we perceived how reality is, about how money is, about what is expected in relationship, about age. All of these wonderful things, we absorbed beliefs from those around us, often without filtering, often without discerning whether that was really what we wanted. We just kind of took it on as, that's the way it is. Why is it this way? Well, because everybody around me says it's this way. And until we begin a process where we begin delving into our subconscious belief system, we continue to play out the pattern that has been established. So recognize that most of this is subconscious. It's not, I always say, it's not like any of us wake up in the morning and go, how can I screw up my life today? Right? Not that conscious. We just take the old, worn-out ideas of how life should be, and we live from that, and we then wonder why life looks the way it does. Well, it looks that way because our subconscious mind controls our behavior. You see, moving us in a direction of our expectations and in the ways we think about life. Note that it is not in the direction of our wants or wishes, but of our expectation. You see, it's a very different thing to say, I wish my life were different. We all have friends that say those things. Gee, I wish life was different. And you say, that's great. And if I ever find a genie, I will let you know. But for the rest of us living in a universal intelligence, we realize it's not our wishing, it's not our hoping, it's not our wanting that makes a difference. It is our own inner work that reconfigures our belief systems and therefore our expectations to have life be different. So I'm going to say to you again, your life looks exactly the way you expect it to. And if we aren't overjoyed and thrilled with any area of our life, it's cool. That's why I said this is troubling. I'm going to annoy you. Why do I know this? Because I've annoyed myself all week. You realize this is how this works. Now I'm planning my talk, and so I have to annoy myself all week, and then it's like, good, I'm done. Now I can annoy you for a little bit. Right? It's your turn. Because as I began to work with this concept, I began to notice things about my life. Things that are joyful and wonderful and overflowing with greater good, and areas where I would prefer to think it is somebody else's fault. Surely I didn't expect this. Shirley, yeah, quit calling me Shirley. But really, I realized that our belief determines our expectation, that what I believe to be true is what is true. If you think about this, there's this wonderful story. It's so powerful. And it started way back in the 1960s with a psychologist that began to look at and study the effect that the teacher had on the student and the level of the teacher's expectation and how that would show up in the classroom. And so they tested all the kids, they did their little IQ tests and all the standard testing that they did, and then they randomly selected 5 or 6 children from each class, and they went to the teachers and they said, we believe, based on our testing, we believe that these students are just on the verge of really blossoming in their intellectual capability. That was it. You should just know that. So as they tracked these children over 2 and 3 years, their testing scores actually became higher in their IQ tests. Now realize these were randomly selected kids, no different from any other ones, except that somebody said, this is a gifted child. This child has the potential of being a gifted child. So we look at that and we say, well, is it one thing? Well, no, but there's a million ways that we interact with people, aren't there? And so whereas before a teacher might have saw an overeager student raising his hand and wanting to share as disruptive to the classroom, here's this budding genius that has something to share. And so that began to get called forth. And so the end result of that was the same stupid little child now, no, I'm kidding. This became a genius. There's hope for all of us. This wonderful child just got that much more of an edge because of the expectation of the teachers and then, therefore, the interaction. Now, I would suggest to you that perhaps we're all in that process all of the time. That we may have developed expectations around life. We may have developed expectations about what is possible for each one of us. Perhaps we've developed expectations about what is possible for me, or what is possible for women, or what is possible for men, or what is possible for whatever, fill in the blank. Your dog, exactly. Trust me, your dog. If you ever want to see how that works, try training an animal. I had a friend, thank you for that, a friend that was sharing on his blog that was saying, I did this great, kind, wonderful act of generosity and rescued a dog. And the dog was not quite on board with the program of being wonderful and house-trained and all that sort of thing. And so he said, I'm doing all this great stuff, set it all up. I'm a highly conscious person. Every time before I left, he'd say, don't destroy the house. And he'd come home to find a destroyed house. And then he had this realization that maybe the dog is just fine. Maybe I need to be different. And began to speak and imagine and talk differently. And lo and behold, the dog was different. You see, this happens all in our lives. There's a wonderful book, many of you have read it, called The Millionaire Next Door. And he talks about, the authors talk about this idea that there's so many people who are our neighbors who are having a radically different experience of their financial life. Now, here's the annoying part. They may not be making a lot more money than you. How annoying is that? Because isn't it better when we can just say, they're rich. And so, of course, they're having a different experience. But, I would say unto you, that if we want to have a different experience, we have to look at what our expectation is. Now, nowhere is there more, the two big two are relationship and money, where we really get to look at our expectation. With the expectations we hold for ourselves, the expectations we hold of what's possible, the expectations of what is, and then, of course, we broadcast that invisibly. We say, over here, I'm right here. If you'd like to be in an abusive relationship, I'm available. Pick me. Right? Or we say whatever we say, but you see, we're the one emanating that information and attracting back to ourselves that. So that wasn't annoying enough. No, I had to go further. And because then I realized that when we expect something, we plan for it. Right? So someone, it's vacation time, you've got the time available, and so what do you do if you're going to go on vacation? You plan it. You figure out where. Is that helpful information? Yes, much more helpful than not knowing, right? Where, when, how, why, what's the budget, what do I got to do, who's going to watch the dog, all that sort of thing that goes along because our expectation is we're going on vacation. So here's what I would ask. What are you planning for? See, I know. It's my turn to annoy you. Because I looked at all the areas where I planned for wonderful, greater good. And then I also was probing and realized there's some areas of less than good that I was planning for. Some expectations that I was holding about life. So last week I spoke about this wonderful thing of this gift that we are receiving from some very generous donors. And they're gifting us with some precious stones, gemstones, that we will hold in trust, and we need to hold them for at least 3 years, and then we are free to do what we will. We're putting that into our building fund, which is really kind of the perfect gift because it allows us to really begin thinking future. But these are not people that are members of our community, right? These are people that, for whatever reason, seem to like me and impressed with the message that I give and wanted to support the good work we do. And so, lo and behold, our greater good. But you know, some time ago, around the first of the year, I started talking about this $50,000 gift that I was seeing. And of course, I've confessed my sins and apologized and asked for your forgiveness that I underestimated. But you know, give the guy a break, right? But you see, because my expectation is our greater good is always coming to us, because my personal expectation is my greater good is always coming to me, trust me, it has not always been that way. My old belief was, I don't know how I can say this in a public forum such as this, bad things happen is another way to say it, right? And why does it always happen to me? But that was, right? But I began to realize that I could reconfigure my belief. And if I reconfigured my belief, then I began to reconfigure my expectation, and then I began to plan for said expectations. Are we planning for our greater good? We're sharing that recently I did a funeral, other option. Wedding, yes. Little Freudian slip there. I just mean the death of singleness. That's all good, right? So I just blew that story so bad. Anyways, rewind. Recently, I performed a wedding for a beautiful couple. I really adore them. It's a wonderful and beautiful thing. And a mutual friend of ours was in attendance at the ceremony, and she came up to me afterwards and said, "Oh my God, that was amazing and wonderful, and I want you to do my wedding. I want you to perform my wedding." I said, "I'd love to. You know, name the time, name the place. I'm all over it." I said, "By the way, do you have a partner in mind?" She said, "Not yet." So that's all right, right? Now, here's what I know about this woman is she's created and manifested all kinds of things in her life because she planned for the eventuality before the thing came forth. So, you know, she's got it all covered. Got a minister, got caterers, got the whole deal. So now it's just details, you know? Right? Right? It's planning for what we expect to be in our life. And so I'm going to suggest to you that perhaps we're always planning for what we expect to be in our life, which is where this gets annoying, unless it's serving and supporting you. So to be willing to look at our lives and to realize that as we are redefining ourselves and setting goals to accomplish the things that we're feeling. Because at some point, as I always like to say, we've got to get tangible about all this wonderful metaphysical stuff. It's got to come down into the world. We've got to put time and space and all those things around it. And so goal setting helps us to take that vision that we hold of our life being magnificent and then to define it and put it into action. Setting goals with specifics and then moving into action to create the things that we say we want. This book in the Millionaire Next Door, what he is saying is what we find with these people that we've studied is they live pretty ordinary lives, but they have a different concept around money. They have different expectations around money, and therefore they handle their money differently. Now, how many of you have ever known people that seem to be perpetually broke? I'm not going to take personal confessions today, but right? And yet, how many of you know people that seem to always have a flow? Yeah. What's different? Simply their own belief, and because of that belief, there's an expectation, and because of the expectation, we play it out, we broadcast it, and so those people that are always in situations, it's because their expectation of life is that it will always provide obstacles to their greater good. We will not judge them harshly. Or at least until 12:30 when we're out of church, and then it's okay. Right? Maybe you are one of them people. But just realize it's not the universe withholding our good, it's our own belief system, and so we want to redefine and recommit and re-expect our greater good. And then as that begins to happen, we begin to have evidence, and it's wonderful and exciting and joyous. So successful people set goals with high expectations. And then they go about acting as if that is so, and lo and behold, if they don't accomplish it. It's not, that's what's exciting, is it's not some gift, because we're all gifted. Just like these young children, these were all wonderful kids. Each had their own gifts and talents. But looking at a kid and saying, wow, I see potential in you, draws the potential forward. Think about the greatest teacher that you've had in your life. Those great teachers always see something that you couldn't see for yourself. I think about some of the mentors that I've had, and I realized there was a part of me that wanted to live up to their expectation of me. They were seeing something more. But here's the thing that I want us to understand. That there is a profound difference between expectation with attachment and unconditional expectation. So what do I mean by that? Sometimes not we, I'm using that very broadly because we're obviously enlightened, holistic beings. But sometimes we will do something for someone with the expectation that they will reciprocate. You know these people, don't you? Well, I took them to lunch. And it's been 3 weeks. And no invitation. Nothing. So now, I'm not in a state of gratitude, I'm in a state of resentment. Because my thing was, if I give to you, you must give back to me in the way that I expect you to. Or if you're really highly dysfunctional like myself, you expect people to do things for you in ways that you never even express. You should just know. If you loved me, you would know, right? But you see, what I've come to realize is this unconditional giving. I had the realization many years ago that my job was simply to plant seeds. That was my job. My job was not to be responsible for what people did with the seeds. My job was not to make sure that you took these principles of science of mind and you learned your 5 steps of treatment and that you practiced every single day and that you demonstrated without failure 94.3% of the time. Not my job. My job is simply sharing, giving, loving, encouraging, and then trusting with high expectation that good always comes back to me. That those who are with eyes to see will see, and those with ears to hear will hear. You see, that made my job a lot easier. When I thought I was responsible for other people's outcomes, that's effort. That is struggle made manifest. Trust me. And so what I've begun to realize, and of course I have this wonderful playground to do that, is that we put it out there. We do this good work. That's why I love that this large gift that has come to us came from people who are not members of this community. How crazy is that, right? And so it doesn't let the rest of us off the hook, by the way. Just want to be clear on that. Right? But you see, so often we get focused on, well, I'm going to do this, and it's going to show up this, and I expect that, right? That is very conditional expectation. But when we know that as we give with high levels of expectation that our good returns to us, then we open ourselves and become a field of possibility for our greater good to return to us. And it comes about in unimagined ways, in ways that we would never have imagined, that we would never have planned. We're just knowing that our greater good is coming. So I'm excited to do my friend's wedding. I can't wait to find out who steps into that vortex. Right? It's like, I don't know why I'm going to talk to you, but we are holding high expectation for what this guy is like, by the way. So, by the way, if you're single and straight, would be nice. Got a job in a car, talk to me. Maybe I can set you up. I don't know. Right? Well, I guess we could raise the expectation a little on that. And yes, moved out of your mom's house. Okay, what the heck? There was a point, I'm sure there was a point at some point in this about... Oh yes, without expectation. But you see, this is the good. Jesus said to us, it's better to give than to receive, but he didn't say it was bad to receive. You see, when we get that we're here to give our gift, to give of our presence, to be who we are, then we should know that the universe will absolutely support us in living and being and becoming. So we give joyously and generously, knowing that we are supporting and expecting our good, but we're not defining how our good must come to us. We're realizing if this avenue no longer works, I can either spend a lot of time and energy being angry and mad at this avenue, or just find an avenue that works. Right? So I don't know where you are in your life, but here's my invitation. I would invite you to explore expanding your level of expectation. Expanding what you believe and what you expect good to happen for you and through you. Expand your vision of possibility. Perhaps not only for you, but for your life, for this world, for this center. You see, the divine is never limited, except for the limitations that we impose upon the divine. So two neighbors can live side by side, and their lives become reflections of what they believe. Not that one's better or worse, just of their belief system. So look and understand, here's the thing I always come back to, if one person can do it, then it's possible for all. This is when I look to the life of the masters. I say, well, if it's possible for one to affect healing, then it's possible for me to affect healing. If it's possible for one to grow into greater spiritual awareness, it's possible for me to do that. If it's possible for one to be a greater influence in the world, then it's possible for me. But I have to expand my capacity and raise my level of expectation. So I'm going to invite you to set high expectations for yourself, to be willing to release those things that no longer serve you, and to step into your greater good. Let us pray together. As we simply take a deep breath, remembering and knowing that indeed there is this one divine life, We allow our hearts to be filled and overflowing with this sense of gratitude, of grace, of joy, of peace, of abundance. For we know in this moment that it is in this presence that we live and move and have our being. That it is nearer than the sunlight, closer than our breath. That we are open and receptive to this dynamic, loving presence that is seeking its highest expression through us. And so we move into this state of awareness, into this state of gratitude, as we simply surrender. And by surrender, I mean that we open up, that we release that which no longer serves us, and step into the divine presence, knowing our divine inheritance. To know that we are created in the image and likeness of the divine itself, which is to say all those spiritual qualities of the divine are already ours, simply awaiting our recognition of it. And so we recognize the presence of wholeness. And we know that that wholeness reveals itself as health, as well-being, as vitality. We step into that presence of abundance, knowing that we are a part of a universally abundant system, that the source is inexhaustible. And so we choose in this moment to graciously and joyously give and to unconditionally receive of divine bounty. We know that the only reality is one of unconditional love. And as we open our hearts and our minds to experience and express that love, we move beyond the realm of fear. We move beyond the realm of resentment. We fully and freely forgive. We release. We allow something to be born anew. Relationships are healed and transformed through the power of this unconditional love. We know that we are blessed. So we give thanks for the many blessings in our lives, those seen and those yet to be realized. We give thanks for the many experiences that we have had that have brought us to this moment of understanding. And we give thanks for a universal law of mind that is operating upon our consciousness to bring forth our greater good. So we are blessed. And from this place, we extend a blessing. We bless this spiritual community, knowing that it is a divine idea unfolding beautifully, powerfully. That we are about the fulfilling mission to be a healing presence in the world, that we are abundantly supplied. We allow our blessing to extend beyond this place to our brothers and sisters everywhere, as we hold that high vision for a planet at peace, for a world that works for all. We are reminded that we are only one collective thought away from peace, joy, harmony, and love. And as always, we bless all priests, rabbis, ministers, teachers of every faith. For we recognize and know there are many pathways to the divine, and so we honor and celebrate them all. In joy and in gratitude, then, I'm simply giving thanks for all of these blessings and so many more. Giving thanks, allowing my heart to be open, to be receptive. And so as we release this word, we know that there is a law of mind operating upon this consciousness, bringing forth its highest good. And so we name it good and very good, as together we say, and so it is.